There is Saurav Ganguly showing off his gold and waving his t-shirt.
She gave up her job, she committed to cricket full time, and she became the best player in the world.
If you can accept that Serena Williams is different from Roger Federer, then I think you will accept that Elise Perry is different from Ben Stokes.
Hello and welcome to Cricket Inside Out. It's been a phenomenally exciting week since Test cricket is back. Go find that if you haven't watched our preview, a whole series preview, in fact, courtesy of Nasser Hussain and Ian Bishop. This week on the show, we're in esteemed company. The storyteller himself, the voice of cricket in India, Harsha Bhogle, joins us again and making her debut on Cricket Inside Out. I am super excited about welcoming a pioneer of the women's game, former England captain, Charlotte Edwards. Charlotte, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
And Harsha, how are things over there?
Nothing changes. We've been in lockdown for the last 3.5, 4 months, getting used to lockdown. So, yeah, making the best of what we've got. So, as a result, I can show off all the books I don't read.
It's a beautiful collection of books. Very, very impressive. And if lockdown goes on for much longer, maybe we can start getting report backs on those.
I'll have to move them around so you know they're actually real.
So it looks like they're being used. Speaking of tours to England, of course, everyone's focus this week firmly on Southampton, but we are going to push the rewind button on Cricket Inside Out today, and we're going back all the way to 2002, July 2002 to be precise, back to a very special tour that India undertook against England, and then particularly an ODI result at Lord's. And the 13th of July 2002, the India team had muddled through 2 decades of not great results away from home. And this was a seminal moment. That big run chase at Lord's, Harsha Bhogle, why was that such a big moment for India?
Well, it was huge because for a start, India won a final. India hadn't won a lot of finals till then. It was the single largest run chase India had achieved. The pictures were excellent. The light was coming through. It was all set up. And it marked an arrival, in a sense, of two young people who had revolutionized Indian fielding, but who hung in there, took India home. There were lots of things about that evening. I think one of the main reasons India were doing well was that through a strange quirk, through not having wicket keepers who batted, India had Rahul Dravid to keep wickets, and that allowed India to play a 7th batsman. And in the period when Rahul Dravid started till Dhoni came, India maxed a lot of run chases because India were always playing the extra batsman, and India had 3 or 4 in the top order who could bowl. Now, I look back at India at the moment and think, why are they getting knocked out of tournaments? It's because after the top 3, there isn't anybody. And this time there was Rahul Dravid, there was Yuvraj Singh, there was Mohammad Kaif, and Tendulkar himself batting at 4. So that was what was special. What made it even more special was a gesture for something seen on the Lord's balcony that would have been considered unthinkable in the years gone by, certainly from Indians, because Indians were always the good boy tourists, always being very correct. And there is Saurav Ganguly showing off his gold and waving his t-shirt and saying, if Flintoff does it in Mumbai, why can't I do it? And long after this game is forgotten, if Indians ever forget results like these, that image will come through because it's become an iconic image of a coming of age of young Indians. You know, times were changing. Indians were more in tune with the rest of the world. There was a bold captain who was willing to be in your face. Indians were not normally in your face before that. So there was a lot happening around that game. It's part of Indian folklore.
Charlotte, let's talk about England's score that day. They posted 325. That was the 4th highest in the ODI history then, and a record for a Lord's final. It's not like that was an average effort from England by any stretch of the imagination.
No, and I remember the game really vividly, actually, for 2 reasons. One was because of the Ganguly celebration, but also Nasser Hussain, the big celebration about batting at number 3. So yeah, I mean, England weren't renowned for their one-day cricket, and so it was a massive score for them. I remember it was a great game of cricket, and I think, like Harsha said, one of the games you always remember, an iconic game.
That Ganguly shirt moment, how was it received in India?
By a generation that was trying to break free, that was trying to express itself, that was a lot more confident than the generation that some of us grew up in, maybe even one after us. And to them, this was like, wow, this is what an Indian can go and do. You ask Saurav today, and he's actually apologetic about doing it. He said, I wish I hadn't. But talk to the army of people who saw that and said, you know what, Flintoff came and did it in Mumbai. Why can't we do it there? And it happened in Lord's. I've got to be careful what I say about Lord's, because Charlotte's good friend is going to be the president there soon. But Lord's was this very snooty, snobbish place at the time. It's changed a lot now. That always gave you the impression they were doing you a favor when you got there. It was always about what you cannot do, and you're at Lord's. And there on the balcony of this most forbidding place is an Indian taking off his shirts. We need to wear a tie to get in. I mean, the irony of that wasn't lost either. But yes, it's become an iconic gesture. A lot of his fans say yes. They use a slightly more strong language than I would hear about the gesture. But it was telling that generation, look, get out of your shell and go and express yourself.
Yeah, it's very rock and roll, especially considering the Ganguly we know now in 2020. When you look back at that, it's so much bigger. You know, as you say, it's a cultural moment. It's like a generational signpost that it's the new century and we're going to do things differently. And it's interesting because when you look at the stats in that 4-year span, you know, leading up to the turn of the century, India had won only 2 wins chasing between 1999 and 2002, 9 successive ODI finals lost. I think it's almost, I mean, now if you look at this India team and the way they play, it is a little unbelievable that there was such a lull before that result.
And look what came just before. Let's put that in context. 2001, the Kolkata test against Australia had come before, where Steve Waugh enforced the follow-on, and then India had that great day with Lakshman and Dravid batting undefeated, turning the tables and winning that test match. And see what happened afterwards. India got to the final of the 2003 World Cup, won in Pakistan 2004, so 3 great results in the span of 2 years. But also Ganguly had started getting this reputation of someone who's been in your face. I mean, he kept Steve Waugh waiting at the toss every single time and enjoyed the fact that Steve Waugh didn't like it. No Indian captain before him would ever have done that. So it was the coming together of a lot of talent, a lot of young talent. It was the bridge between the Tendulkar, Dravid, Ganguly generation, well, more the Dravid, Ganguly generation. Tendulkar came before, but also the coming of age of Harbhajan, of Sehwag, of Zahir Khan. So it was a nice, happy mix. And it's a moment that we never allow Nasser ever to forget.
Ever. We did ask him about it last week just to rub it in a little bit. Of course, now it's 18 years ago this week. Crazy to think. Speaking of momentum and cultural signpost moments, particularly in cricket, shift our focus to women's cricket. Now, earlier this year, we had the phenomenally successful T20 World Cup, and both on and off the field, this was a cricketing moment. 1.1 billion views on ICC's digital platforms. The final had that record attendance, 86,174 people. The question now is, obviously, this year has had a big momentum pause for every single sport. Whether it's in women's or men's cricket, we've seen the effects of it. And on the men's side, Test cricket have started getting going slowly. Charlotte, maybe talk to me about how we get the momentum back. How do we get the women's game to capitalize on what we saw in March? You were there on the ground. It must have been so special.
It was a really special day, I think, for anyone involved in the women's game. I don't think we could ever envisage, probably 2 years ago after the World Cup final in England, that there'd be that many people at a women's event. It was truly incredible. One of those moments that I'll always look back on and be incredibly proud of. But Yeah, I mean, this pandemic couldn't have come at a worse time, really. Having built that momentum, it was a massive summer here for us in England with the cricket we had on this summer with India and South Africa coming over and the 100 competition. So, yeah, I mean, we'll hopefully regain the momentum at some point. But, you know, it's so important now that boards keep investing in the women's game. You know, really keep valuing it, because I think it shows that, you know, what we can create in the women's game, and we can, I think this is just the start. I think what we saw in Melbourne, hopefully, is the start of some great things.
Do you think the consumer behavior will change much, particularly in our levels of interest in the women's game, Harsha?
Oh, there's no doubt at all that was a huge turning point in the women's game. I mean, one Perry didn't play, another Perry took center stage, but that's a separate issue. But 86,000, just imagine there was no Katy Perry. You'd still have had 40, 50,000 people for a women's final. That's colossal by itself. So I think that told you that the women's game can start to attract audiences. As Charlotte said, even the 2017 World Cup in England, I think it went a long way towards telling people, look, don't see us as the sisters of the men's game. See us as individuals in our own right, with our ability to put out a good spectacle. We play cricket differently, but we play cricket just as attractively, just as well. And I think that these years, both the 2017 and 2020 was, I mean, I was in Melbourne. I couldn't believe what I was seeing there that day. So I think it's a landmark, and I think women's cricket can only grow from there. I agree with Charlotte that the 100, that unfortunately the 100 not happening is not great, but I think there's enough momentum built up. I think more people have begun to understand that the women's game can do well. So while it's sad, I don't think it can hamper the growth of the women's game too much.
What can cricket do to ensure that this momentum maintains itself one way or another, considering the long list of variables that we don't have control over, Charlotte?
Oh, I think, you know, it's just important, certainly in the women's game. You know, we keep funding the game, and we keep, you know, hopefully domestic cricket, you know, WBBL and the 100 are really important, I think, in keep growing the game. But equally, each board needs to keep investing. I think that's the most important thing for me. I know there's going to be lots of cuts around the world potentially, but I really hope the investment in women's cricket maintains, and I think you'll really bear the fruits of that in years to come.
Now, our Hall of Fame feature on Cricket Inside Out this week, we're staying with the women's game. As I've said before, we take our chances when we get them. And this week's Hall of Famer was selected for a reason. She was the first woman to be named a Wisden Cricketer of the Year. Clare Taylor, inducted in 2018. And as it happens, we have Charlotte here to tell us about her. Tell us about Clare, both as a player, but also her influence in the women's game.
She was unbelievable. I think, you know, you talk about players who get the most out of their ability, and I think she was one of those players for me. I think Clare would openly admit when she first came into the England team, she struggled, and she went away and she thought, I want to be one of the best batters in the world. And she gave up her job. She committed to cricket full time when we weren't getting paid. And she became, in my eyes, the best player in the world. Certainly when I was captain in that sort of 2008, 2009 period, she was quite unbelievable. And I think anyone that was around her at the time, she dragged us all along with her. And I think me as well, because I think she set the standard for the team at times, and we all followed. And to train and be around someone like that on a day-to-day basis was really inspiring, and for a number of our younger players, she was a great role model for them.
I think she's a great role model, full stop. I mean, she studied mathematics, she had a really nice cushy job, they paid her a really decent salary, and she opted out of that, moved back in with her folks, and then she persisted and seemed to have been so determined in order to reach the great heights that she did. 1,030 test runs in 15 tests, 4,101 runs in 126 ODIs, and that 156 run score that she put up against India at Lord's is a record ODI score at the venue for both men and women. That is a proper record to be able to have next to your name, Harsha Bhogle.
There was this other record that was a very famous quiz question about the first double hundred in one-day internationals, and of course it belonged to a woman long before the men actually got 200. But that's a separate issue. It's not about men and women. I've got a couple of points for Charlotte actually. She played hockey. I've got a lot of respect for people who do mathematics, had a job in the IT industry. She's a violinist. What on earth was she doing playing cricket, number one? And number two, what did it mean to that England side around then? Until you and Clare came together, it sort of coincided with the best period in English cricket, isn't it? Climaxing with 2009, those two titles.
Yeah, I love playing with Clare. I think we're very different personalities. She was very intense. She knew what she wanted to do around her cricket. And we worked beautifully together in many ways. But yeah, she was very talented. She had a good life balance with cricket, and she'd go off and do her, she'd play her violin. She'd always invite us to her concerts, and we loved going to support her doing that as well. But she was a great role model for younger players when the game wasn't professional, because I think you needed that player to look up to. And she spurred us all on, and like you say, Harsha, her best years were around that sort of 2007 to 2009, and then in my eyes, she probably gave up 2 years too early. But in her opinion, she'd done what she wanted to do in the game. She ticked all of those boxes and wanted to move on to something else. Now she runs a lot. Now she wants to do marathons and all sorts now.
She seems like the kind of person who just can't let a challenge go, and then once she feels like she's got it down, she starts searching for the next one. Is that accurate?
Totally accurate. She'd won World Cup, she'd won Ashes series, and I think by the time sort of 2011 came around, she probably ticked off everything she wanted to do in cricket, and then I guess stuff outside of cricket then became more important to her, and that's the type of person Clare was. But it's really fun. We were on a call with the 2009 team about 3 weeks ago, and it was so lovely to see everyone. And Tails hasn't changed one bit, and she's still really involved in the game with MCC. But yeah, she's loving her running and her dogs, and she wants to go and live up in the north of England now and just walk her dogs and run lots.
But I found one thing very in common between you and her as well. And I was chatting to Harmanpreet Kaur only very recently. A lot of you, when you were young, played cricket with boys. Now, obviously, it was very different in England than it is in India. In India, there was a sort of social barrier. But was it acceptable then? And did it play a part in sort of toughening you up by playing with the boys early on? Because she even captained a team with boys, did she, at college?
Yeah, she would have played at university, yeah. And I put a lot of my success down to my early years playing all boys and men's cricket. It was tough, it was challenging, but at the time I didn't realise it was preparing me actually to play international cricket, because, you're being judged every time you walk to the wicket. You weren't necessarily accepted a lot of the boys didn't accept you as a player, which was tough at the time, but I, without doubt, would not have had the success I've had in cricket had it not been for playing boys and men's cricket from an early age.
Yeah, and it does definitely, I'm sure, do a few things for your character, particularly as you cope under pressure. Now, staying with the women's game, another very proud product of England women's cricket, Clare Connor, has become the first woman to be announced president of the MCC in 233 years. This is an unthinkable amount of time that it has taken a woman to get right to the top of that pile. But congratulations to Clare. She's also the ECB's Director of Women's Cricket. Now, Charlotte, you have also served within the MCC structures at quite a senior level. What has it taken to get a woman to be announced president, and what does it mean?
I don't think it's a real surprise to anyone in England or who's been involved in the MCC that Clare was announced as president. When it was announced, Claire's done so much for cricket in this country, whether it be playing or whether it be in administration. And for me, she was the obvious fit, really. And I didn't even really think about the fact that there had not been a woman before. I just thought she was the best person to do it. I know she's incredibly proud to have the honour of being the first female president. We've been good friends, we've been roommates for years. She was the tidy one, I was the messy one. But we go back a long way, and I think anyone who knows Clare is really proud of what she's achieved in cricket, and I think I know she'll do a great job for the MCC when her reign comes around, which I think is in about 12 months' time.
Yeah, I mean, it is an institution where the Queen was the only woman allowed in the door until the late 90s. Charlotte, do you think the MCC of 2020 is a very different story to what it used to be?
It's a very different organisation than what it was. Certainly when we played our first game at Lords in 1997, women weren't meant to be in the long room. We had special dispensation to be there for the day. So how things have changed in that time. I think I even said that to Claire, on a text message when she got the role. How things have changed in the time that we've been playing the game together, and it's such an inclusive place now. I think there's definitely more they can do, without doubt. Any organisation can always do more, but I think it's a great sign. I'm looking forward to being part of the MCC for a long period to come as well.
So now, just to be clear, because of COVID, Kumar Sangakkara's presidency is extended by a year. She takes over in October 2021. What do you think is going to be on her agenda as soon as she assumes that role? She's got lots of time now to prepare for it.
I think she's already said the diversity of the organisation, I think, can always be improved. I think there's definitely been strides in the recent past, but I think definitely there will be, looking at how they can be more diverse as an organisation. I'd like to see more women's games played there. Of course we would. I mean, the World Cup final was played there in 2017. We've not had a game there since. So I think there's got to be, a women's game played at Lords every summer, in my opinion, because, it's the home of cricket. You saw the attendance we had for that World Cup final, and I think the England players deserve to play there, in my opinion, every single summer.
Yeah, create some new traditions. Harsha, doesn't that sound good?
It's just the right thing to do, isn't it? So that we start erasing these differences. I mean, Serena Williams plays with great pride on the centre court at Wimbledon. So why can't Heather Knight and Sophie Devine and Smriti Mandhana and all the others go and play at Lords? I mean, it shouldn't be an event, as Charlotte says. It should be just another game. And the moment we start seeing it as just another game, then we stop putting tags to it, and then it just grows. Look, if you can accept that Serena Williams is different from Roger Federer, then I think you will accept that Elise Perry is different from Ben Stokes, and then we're on.
And once we've gotten past all of these firsts, the second and the third and the fourth person to serve in that role will just be the new president. They won't be the firsts of anything, which is an era I am so looking forward to. And now we open the floor to our loyal fans. Thank you so much for turning this part of the show into an absolute must-watch every single week. Charlotte, I know this is your first time hanging out with us, so I'm going to launch with a first fan question aimed in your direction from Axel Blaze on Twitter. Who is the best women's all-rounder in limited overs cricket at present?
Oh, I don't think you can look further than Elise Perry. I think her record with bat and ball is incredible too. I've said it on record recently. I think she will be one of I think at the moment the greatest player we've ever seen in the women's game, and purely because she can change the game with bat or ball, and she's an incredible talent.
Yeah, great to see the impact she's having, and hopefully she captivates the imagination of young aspiring cricketers everywhere. Harsha Bhogle, here's one from Kaustav Dasgupta, who's a very loyal viewer, says, Harsha Bhogle, what is your opinion on Kohli's view that test matches in India should be hosted only at major centres like Mumbai, Kolkata, Bangalore, Chennai and Delhi?
It used to be like that in the years gone by when you had only 5 or 6 centers, much like England have 5 or 6 centers, or South Africa have some. There's a tradition of a Boxing Day Test match in Melbourne and New Year's Test match in Sydney, and we had those kind of traditions until people said, let's take the Test match game out. Let the smaller towns also experience what Test match cricket is. Also, they thought there'd be bigger crowds in Test match cricket when, if you went to a Visakhapatnam or you went to a Ranchi or an Indore, you expected better crowds. I think the reason Virat is saying that is he wants better pitches, that he wants a tradition of Test match cricket being established. I think Virat Kohli is one of the most important people in Test match cricket because here's a young leader talking up Test match cricket, something all of us love. So he wants a pattern established. He wants a tradition established, saying, look, end of the year we play in Kolkata, we play the New Year's Test in Chennai. There's a tradition to playing Test match cricket in Mumbai. There's cricket lovers there. We get similar kinds of surfaces. You know what it is like in Adelaide. You know what it is like in Brisbane. Let's have wickets like those as well. The only shortcoming to that, the only barrier to that is that these centers also want limited overs cricket because they generate gates and they generate profits like that. So if you tell them you do Test match cricket but don't do T20 or one days, we'll take that into the smaller towns, then they may not be very happy with that. And we have so many large stadiums and grounds everywhere that it's always a slightly difficult problem to solve. But I, for one, would be delighted if we had traditional test match centers, traditional test match timings. You say in November you play here, and end of November you play there, and much like it is around the world. I support that. Yeah.
Charlotte, here's another question aimed at you from Javadan Debaji. Says, who will be the second woman after Mitali Raj to surpass your tally of runs in women's ODIs?
Probably, if we're looking at her recent form, it'll probably be Meg Lanning. I think her record, her age as well, and if she has, a decent career, I think she'll probably beat us hands down, if I'm honest. She's got so many ODI handlers right now, and she's quite a formidable player and still reasonably young as well. So I think it probably will be Meg Lanning. She's an outstanding talent, and she seems to score runs against the best teams. And I think that's probably one thing that stood out about Meg Lanning is her runs are generally scored against the best teams. So hopefully she won't score them against England, but she'll continue to, I'm sure, score lots of runs in the future.
Deb Tucker on YouTube asks, is the England versus West Indies Test Series an ideal opportunity to promote Test cricket since it's the only top-level cricket being played at the moment? And a lot of people have been talking about this during the week, saying, yay, for the fact that cricket is restarting with a Test Series. We're not seeing a shorter format. We're seeing the Red Bull out there. How important is it, Harsha Bhogle, for us to get this machine going again with Test cricket?
I think if you're talking England, you're preaching to the converted. I think England's a big home of Test match cricket. So I don't think you've got to worry about what's happening in England. It's in the rest of the world that you need to worry about. But this is a lovely little window that's got created because of a pandemic, and if it can draw people, if people say, look, I just want to watch any cricket and let me watch Test cricket as a result, and let me therefore start to understand the nuances of Test match cricket again, then it'll be fine. I mean, Test cricket's not in the healthiest state, so whatever you get from Test match cricket is fantastic. So yes, I hope the fact that so many people are keen to watch any cricket and will watch England versus West Indies, later England versus Pakistan, hopefully India versus Australia at the end of the year. They're all Test matches. I hope people start to understand why we love Test match cricket, that it goes beyond 30 runs and 12 balls. I'm not saying that's bad, but that the qualities of resilience, the qualities of tenacity, the qualities of hanging in there, turning the tide, all that we see in life.
So, Charlotte, can I challenge you to preach to the unconverted on what makes Test cricket great and why they should use this opportunity to give it another shot?
Well, it's something that I keep preaching in the women's game, that it's the game sort of dying out in women's cricket, and I actually think it would be such a great format for women to play right now, because I'd love to see England go to Sri Lanka and play a three-match Test series, because I think it would certainly bring the game teams closer together. England learning to play spin in a place like Sri Lanka would be fantastic. I'm a massive advocate of playing more Test cricket. I loved it. I didn't play enough of it, but I do understand the reasons why we're not. But equally, I think there's so much to learn from Test cricket. It's such a great form of the game, and like Harsha said, there's so much to learn from it. I mean, the game can move so quickly, and hopefully, this is a great opportunity, like he said, for fans to watch it and really absorb it, and hopefully, it'll be a really good series between the West Indies and England.
Now, this is an interesting topic that has come up recently, and we have it on our fan question list. Aryan on Instagram says, should all balls that end up hitting the wickets be given out LBW, irrespective of where the ball is pitching? In other words, should batsmen be able to use the pads for more than protection? Harsha, you are smiling already. Have you got a thought on this?
No, the reason I'm smiling is I looked up Charlotte's record, and she's far more batsman than bowler. I know she got a few wickets as well, but she's far more batter than bowler. She is going to say no to this, I can tell you right away. But the LBW law, look, the LBW law has only changed three or four times. From the time when you said it's got to pitch between the stumps, pitch and hit in line. Then they allowed you to for a ball to pitch outside to be given LBW if you're not offering a shot. It's changed, but it's changed very slowly over the last so many years. I'd like to see it trialed first, because on paper it seems all right, isn't it? If a ball's hitting the stump and the leg's in the way, then you're out. You're preventing the ball from hitting the stumps. But there's a reason that outside the leg stump is not allowed, because there's a blind spot that develops, especially when a leg spinner is bowling. Can you imagine Shane Warne's pitching it on the adjacent square and he's getting an LBW because he turns the ball that much? So you've got to look at how it pans out in play, because sometimes it's like these viruses. You think you've got a cure, and then when you start using the cure, you say, oh, maybe not. Maybe I hadn't thought of that yet. So I'd like to see that trialed. And then let's see what happens. Will games start ending in 2 days? Will left arm quicks become unplayable? We don't know that yet. We're still in the realm of debate. So I'd like to see that trialed somewhere before we take it further.
And in the batter's corner, we've got Charlotte Edwards. Come on, Charlotte. Isn't it going to force the batters to raise their game?
Yeah, I understand. I think DRS has made a massive impact on the game, and I think it's brought the bowlers back into cricket. So I think there's been a lot done in that regard. I think maybe it's just taken it a little bit too far. But I'm one who is open to change, and if we trial something and it seems like it works, then I'll be up for it. But yeah, I think the bowlers have definitely benefited from DRS, so I wouldn't like them to benefit too much more.
If Charlotte was still playing, would she have answered that a little differently?
Probably.
Probably, yes. Where should we trial this, Harsha?
Maybe a couple of first-class games. I don't think you should look at it at club level or below first-class level, because then you won't learn very much about whether it's going to work at international level. But say, okay, we're putting aside 2 games in England, we're putting aside 2 games in Australia, and we're seeing how it works on the subcontinent where the ball turns a little bit more. And let's see how it works across 2 or 3 games, across different conditions. And then let's see what happens. I mean, the left arm quicks, they'll start a union soon, won't they? They'll go on strike, agitation. We want balls pitched outside leg stump given out. What about the leg spinners? And the poor little finger spinner will say, oh, okay, maybe I'll start bowling leggies all over again. So maybe we'd have the first ambidextrous batsman coming around. Maybe Warne will say, okay, I'll bat the other way around. So you never know what will happen. So I'd like it tried in different conditions. Say, in seeming conditions in South Africa, how does it work with the new law? And then we'll take it one step up.
Okay, well, that's an interesting theory. To Charlotte Edwards next. How do you rate Heather Knight's captaincy?
I think Heather's done a fantastic job. She took over the reins from myself in 2016, and I think to win the World Cup at home with without doubt be her greatest achievement so far as captain. I think there's still more to come from her and the team. I think she'd probably admit in the last couple of years they've not performed as well as they would have liked. The Ashes certainly last summer was disappointing, and the recent World Cup. So I think this World Cup in New Zealand is a big opportunity for the England team and for Heather. I think what impressed me most about Heather is her personal game has moved on as well, and that's often sometimes that's can be affected when you take on the captaincy. So the most positive thing is that she's got better as a player through captaincy, and I expect her best years are ahead of her. She's only 29, and I think there's still more to come from Heather.
Oh, well, that's very exciting news. Great to have you weigh in on that. And then finally, do you think Sarfaraz Ahmed should be preferred over Mohammad Rizwan in the series against England? Now, of course, Pakistan fans are already very excited about this prospect. Harsha, Bhogle, what do you think?
Well, I've always had a lot of time for Sarfaraz as a player. I thought he was a genuine batsman. But in recent times, Rizwan's come along. He's got some very good scores in limited overs cricket. He was part of that big series, big partnership with Babar Azam in Australia. So he's shown that he can play. So it's now up to Sarfaraz to come back into the side and displace the incumbent. The incumbent is now Rizwan. I think that's very clear. But Sarfaraz is a really good player. I thought there was a fighter in Sarfaraz. I always thought that Pakistan cricket didn't get as much out of Sarfaraz as I thought he was capable of. But then I was looking from a distance. But currently the incumbent is Rizwan. So it's up to Sarfaraz to break the road down, isn't it?
Well, thank you so much for joining us on Cricket Inside Out. Our time together has flown, as it always does. Harsha, Bhogle, thank you for weighing in and sharing some of your phenomenal insights. Charlotte Edwards, I hope we'll have you again. And thank you so much for your time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
As cricket has made its return in Southampton this week, we'll leave you with this touching tribute to the game we love, courtesy of Ian Bishop.
Carlos Brathwaite! Carlos Brathwaite! Remember the name!
They say the art of victory is learned in defeat.
Healy was not in form.
We've all wondered where our next run is coming from.
He has got it!
And at times, it may have felt that we've let things slip.
This is not a good sign for Australia.
But the greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall.
No way! No way! You cannot do that, Ben Stokes!
Understanding that there are no shortcuts to any place worth going. That when we lift others up, we lift ourselves.
That's great to see.
That is sweet. This place is going to erupt. Oh,
Knowing that what we do today can inspire tomorrow.
glorious. That is as good as you'll ever see.
We don't just return,
You cannot write a script like this.
we come back stronger.
It's out of the ground, is it? Is it out of the ground? It is! What a shot, what a cricketer.